Well, we said we had a hot new product launch coming out for you today, but I think this weather is taking it to the extreme. So thank you guys so much for being here with us. We are so excited. You know, we just spent a little bit of time talking about some of the programs that make what we're about to do possible in this state. And we're very excited and thankful for all the support we've received from this community to be able to do this with you and share this with the great people of North Dakota and abroad. And I want to say hello to our virtual audience out there. We actually are live streaming this entire event to hundreds of dealers and customers around the globe today. And so we're so excited to have you all be a part of this. Just a couple more thanks before I get started. You know, we really couldn't do what we're doing without the thousands and thousands of customers that invested in us over the last 10 years as a company. When we are able to be so honored as to receive their investment in our products, we are able to take those profits and reinvest it into new things like we're about to show you today. So we couldn't do it without you guys. We have an amazing set of dealers all around the world. Many of you are here today and tuning in online. So thank you all so much for your support in helping us grow. My team in red shirts, the Intelligent Ag team, you guys are awesome. A lot of work went into this event. Appreciate you guys. We did a lot of work with North Dakota State and KJ Ag Services here on the plots that you're going to see later. So I want to make sure I mention them. And of course, how about a round of applause for the Grand Farm ecosystem that's going on. We appreciate everything that you guys are doing here in Fargo is super important, and I hope all those tuning in online get to come visit the farm at some point here in Fargo. And then Opco Marketing is another North Dakota startup that has really helped us with all the preparations for this event and everything, so I want to make sure we mention them. So let's talk about sprayers a little bit. Arguably, one of the most complex and most common operations on any farm today. You spend more time. I remember my dad's here today, and I remember him saying, you know, it's okay, the snow has thawed, it's spraying season. Okay, we just got the crop planted, it's spraying season. The crop's growing, it's spraying season. We just harvested, okay, it's spraying season again. He spent more time in that sprayer than any other machine. And when we think about how critical spraying is to the operation, we protect against diseases, we protect against weeds, we try to keep bugs off the plants. We fertilize with them. We feed and we protect, and we just really take care of our crops with a sprayer. It's a critical piece to the puzzle. When we look at the trends in the industry, the rules are changing all the time. This is kind of an interesting one. You've probably heard a lot about dicamba and drift reduction and things like that. Well, this was an update in March on rules, and you look in the sidebar, and here there are already another rules update number 2. States are mulling more restrictions on it, and more states are trying not to extend the dates for use and all that kind of stuff. So it's like really hard to keep track of everything going on just on the regulation side. On top of that, we have all these societal pressures around spraying. Everybody somehow on social media seems to be an expert in agriculture. And this was a comment we got on promoting just this event, saying ag chems are killing the planet. So this is what we're up against, and people don't really know what's going on in agriculture, so they think, you know, they hear these lawsuits about Roundup or whatever, and all of a sudden, everybody's an expert and really want us to all stop spraying. Well, come out to the field, and I'll show you what no spraying looks like. You're going to have nothing but weeds. You're going to go hungry real fast. We know that there's an increased trend to have more and more record keeping, so we know that's a big trend in the industry. We talk a lot about reducing drift, larger droplet sizes. We're trying to make sure that the chemicals we're spraying don't move into another field that it's not supposed to. And of course, the chemical labels themselves, the instructions and the restrictions for how they're used, they change often, and we have new requirements. Some of those chemicals actually are now specifying exactly what nozzles we have to use. So all of this, and we still have developing ecological things going on, herbicide resistance, where weeds actually get smart and they start to defend themselves against the products we're using. So we definitely want to make sure we're killing them the first time so they don't get a chance to defend themselves later. You add all this up, And if we all had a relationship status on Facebook with spraying, we would say it's complicated. It's a really complex operation, right? There's about 1,000 things you have to manage. Everything changes when you put a different chemical in that tank, and it's a really big deal. And really our last line of defense, where the rubber meets the road on a sprayer, is in a little piece of plastic with some stainless steel maybe in it, called a nozzle. That's how that liquid gets to where we're trying to put it. And we really have not had a ton of intelligence around what that nozzle is doing, and until now. That's what we're trying to change. So when you look at the performance specifications for a nozzle, this is what a farmer gets. This is how a farmer picks what nozzle he needs to use. He says, okay, I need to apply at this rate. I need this kind of droplet size. I'm going to use these pressures, and I want to drive this fast. How many farmers and operators do you think memorize all these charts? And by the way, they might use 5 to 10 nozzles in a season for different products. And particularly when we're talking about limiting drift, droplet size is really important. Most sprayers are running between 30 and 50 pounds per square inch on their pressures. Look at this. This is one of the most common nozzle tips used. It has 3 different droplet size categories that it produces between 30 and 50 psi. So when I'm making changes out in the field, do you think I'm thinking about exactly what droplet size is coming out? It's hard to manage. It's really hard to keep track of. But who cares? What does it matter, right? So we wanted to kind of dive into the issue, okay, if you have a problematic nozzle, does it matter? Does it have an effect in the field, especially when you've got 100 nozzles out there and they're all overlapping and, so what happens if you have a problem? So first we wanted to see, okay, is it hard to tell? Can you visually inspect a sprayer, which is how most of it is done today? Can you visually inspect a sprayer and notice a problem as an operator? Well, here's a quick picture on a test stand in our labs where we had kind of a problematic nozzle with some gunk in it. It had basically some sediment in that nozzle. Could you tell by looking at this picture that that nozzle had 80% less material coming out of it? To me, it actually kind of looks like there's a little bit more because it has a different spray pattern and it just, just looks like there's more product coming out of there. So then we developed some prototype sensors. We went out, we put them on a sprayer. This picture came from a sprayer in Illinois. We put our sensors on there. We started testing it. We immediately saw one that was reading low. Now, we weren't sure, maybe our sensor was faulty. So we took some water bottles, stuck it underneath these nozzles, and sure enough, that nozzle had about 50% less flow. Okay? He would have never known. He would have sprayed all season potentially with that nozzle like that. So this was up at our farm in Rugby with some neighbors spraying. It's maybe hard to see here in the tent, but that sprayer looks pretty normal. Everything looks like it's going just fine, right? Actually, you can see on this right wing, there's a couple of streaky nozzles. They've got like these very distinct patterns coming out of them. But what's the big deal? Again, like we said before, is there an impact in the field? So we wanted then to kind of go to the agronomic side of it and understand if having a coverage problem or a nozzle problem with just one nozzle had an effect. Because yes, there's been lots of studies done on getting the right rates, but we're always usually talking about the total rate across the boom, not really focusing on an individual nozzle. So we went with NDSU. We put together just a small boom of 4 nozzles, and then we messed with one of the nozzles. We kept the others fine, and we messed with one of them, where basically we said, okay, here's a regular nozzle. This is 100% flow, 75% of the flow, 65 to 25, and so on. And you can see as we get more and more flow restrictions on just that one nozzle, we have more and more weed coverage with 2 very popular chemicals used. One is a systemic herbicide, so if you get it at all on that plant, it should kill the whole plant. And one is a contact herbicide, which you have to have very good coverage on those leaves in order to kill that whole plant. So, convinced yet it matters? It's pretty important, okay? This year we wanted to go bigger with the Grand Farm And we planted about 5 or 6 acres out in the Grand Farm test plots of 6 different crop types using several different types of herbicides, pre-emergent, post-emergent, because different chemistries work differently. And so we really wanted to go big or go home. Now, it looks like we only have a few dozen test plots, but what we actually did is we replicated some of these nozzle scenarios several times over the course of this study. So we actually have over 150 tests out there. So we're gonna do a tour here in a little bit where you can go and see some of the results of problematic nozzles, and hopefully you come away pretty impressed with the work that's being done by our team out there. So kind of to wrap it up, the impact to us is very clear that nozzles matter. What comes out of your nozzles matters so much. And it is almost impossible for an operator to really detect any of these problems as an operator. This boom looks pretty good, right? There's actually a nozzle 5th from the end that has a problem that's almost impossible to see from that operator's cab. This is what the operator sees right out that window. And by the way, this one's parked. You're usually driving 15 miles an hour. Look at how much less liquid came out of that one nozzle tip as opposed to ones that were working just fine. And I may have never seen that. This is what happens in the field. This is what you'll see out at the plot studies. One of those nozzles has that issue, and you can see here where we planted some wild oats and some other weed species. You can see very clearly there is way less kill in this area, and even some natural weeds and water hemp popping up just in that area that had that little problematic nozzle. That's what we're trying to combat. Now you can really see some things from the air, which is kind of cool. Took an aerial shot of our soybean trials out there. It's maybe hard to see with the color like this, so I'm going to bump up the color settings a little bit. And you can see in the areas where we simulated these nozzle issues, you can see strips of more weed pressure. I'll zoom in a little bit more. And this is where all of the issues were with the nozzle. And so it's very clear that nozzle performance is absolutely critical to getting a good job, doing a good job in the field. And we all know the pressures that I talked about before on doing a really good job. So if you don't think this is causing more problems for you next year and the year after that with herbicide-resistant weeds, and even this year, robbing yield and moisture from your crop that you're trying to grow, you're wrong. So from our perspective, we wanted to help you spray on target. And so today we're here to introduce a new product that we're going to be coming out with and shipping in 2022 called RECON SpraySense. And what we've developed, where'd my sensor go? Here to go. What we've developed is a very cool, unique little sensor that we can put onto every nozzle body, and we'll show you how it's installed out at the sprayer, that basically tells us pressure and flow out of every single nozzle tip, and that gives us a ton of intelligence about what's going on. And then we combine that with a really intuitive iPad application, so we can see real-time, nozzle-by-nozzle, flow rate, pressure, and we can even tell you the droplet size because we know what those manufacturers are saying the droplet size should be, so you know exactly if you're in the sweet spot. And then to help kind of boil all this down, there's a lot of things in this, right? Like, okay, pressures, flows, droplet size, you know. To boil all this down into one easy-to-understand metric of how good of a job I'm doing, we're introducing this feature called the Spray Quality Score. So this will help me understand as I'm driving through the field if I'm hitting my targets or not. If I'm not hitting my targets, you will see that your spray quality score starts to fall. If I'm hitting my targets, my spray quality score starts to go back up. It's basically a representation of the percentage of acres on target. Pretty cool. iPad application, simple to install, and you get instant notifications of problems in the field on your sprayer. And so without further ado, I want to bring Garrett Maurer up here. He's our director of product, and he's going to show you the product and give you a little demonstration. And then after that, we're going to split up into groups and go show you some demos out in the field. All right, let's hear it for Garrett Maurer, everybody. Here's your clicker.
Take this off.
I give you RECON SpraySense. Oh, there's your clicker.
Thank you, Joe.
I'll go do the laundry now.
The first thing I'd like to open my 20 minutes here with is a sincere thank you to everybody involved in doing this, and especially I get the privilege and the honor to stand in front of all of you today and announce this product. And it wasn't that long ago, about 3.5 years, that Joe asked me to join Intelligent Ag and help build a product team. And this is one of the first real big outputs of that team. So there are a lot of people not standing up here today who deserve a lot of credit for this. Guys and men and women in red shirts, the companies that we work with, things like that. So thank you sincerely to everybody. Now, let's talk about the product. RECON SpraySense. The thing I want to emphasize with this, and you'll see it in some of our other literature, in some of our marketing material, when we talk about our air seeder product, but more than just a blockage monitor. And I want to stress that with this new product. And what we have deemed it is SpraySense is a spray quality monitor. So what's that mean? When you look at a sprayer and all of the different parameters and the metrics that you're measuring, it's not just flow, it's not just pressure, all the things that Joe just talked about and introduced. You have droplet size, you have the rate that you're applying, you have the flow out of each nozzle, you have the speed of the machine, you have the properly selected nozzle. All of that plays into the idea of spraying on target. It's not just one parameter, it's not just pressure, it's not just the flow, it's all of it that matters. And what our system does is it brings all of those aspects together in an easy to understand and use product. And the point of that is to, the point of that is to make it simple for operators, for farmers, for growers to know that they're spraying on target and that they're doing a good job. And so the aspects of what I'm going to emphasize here are we are a spray quality monitoring system. So as Joe mentioned earlier, we have taken all of that information. If you think about a typical sprayer, probably talking 72 nozzles. We're measuring 4 different parameters of each nozzle, and we're taking information off the machine, and we boil all of that down. So that is literally hundreds of data points. And we're boiling that down into a single number, and that's your spray quality score. So that is a combination of your pressure, your flow, your droplet size, your rate, your speed, and the nozzle selection. And we bring that to a single number. That is your percentage of on-target application compared to the total number of acres that you've applied. And what's really key for that is, depending on who you are, some people, like myself, love the details. I want to know what every single nozzle is doing. I want to be able to see it all. For others, they have a lot of other important things to do. Monitoring hundreds of data points every second isn't something that is high on their list. So for everyone, having a single number that you can look with. And perhaps you start out with the system and you find out you're running at a 60. And what's that mean? That means 60% of the acres that you've covered, you did on target. You got within the operating parameters that you wanted to apply at. And then maybe the next time it's 70 because you make adjustments. You slow down when you're turning. You manage your acceleration. You replace your nozzles when you need to, things of that nature. And all that can be boiled into that single number that you can watch. From there, what are we actually doing? Like, all that information is great, but how is it helping? Well, at a nozzle level, do you have a blocked nozzle? Right, that's an obvious one. Do you have inconsistent nozzles across your boom? Do you have a worn nozzle? Surveying people out in the field, it can be anywhere from yearly to every 3 years to when it looks like they have an issue, that they'll go and replace their nozzles. And we have evidence to prove that that's not good enough if you want to apply on target. So being able to monitor those things, even aspects of the machine, did you remember to go and switch your nozzles to the appropriate, you wanted to use an 04 instead of an 03 on this field. Did you actually do that? This system will tell you that because it will show you the inconsistency from the on target that you want to apply. And then it expands beyond that. How about the machine itself? Undersized pump, driving too fast, driving at the wrong speed so you're not getting the rates you want. Our system will tell you all of that. And in fact, we've actually built it in so you can select the nozzle that you want to use, and the system will auto-figure What should your approximate speed be? What is your rate going to be? What pressures are you operating at? All based on the nozzle you select and the rate that you want to apply at. Adaptable hardware. We've got a self-contained system with this. So it operates with most, really, if you can provide it power and you can connect it in to the nozzle body, that's basically what you need. It operates with your Hypro nozzle bodies, your Wilger, and your T-Jet nozzle bodies, and really that covers a majority of the market, and we will continue to expand on that as we find more need for it. And then beyond that, even pull type. Again, if you can apply or supply power to it, and you can plumb it up, the system will operate. Our GPS is built in, all of those aspects. Simple installation, and I want to show you real quick here. These are our major components. We've got our telematics device, the gateway. This you need to mount on the frame somewhere. This is the primary computing package of the system. And beyond that is our sensor. And this attaches in between the diaphragm valve and the nozzle body of a typical turret adapter. So if you look at this, this is actually a Hypro nozzle body. And our system screws in with an adapter into the body. Then our sensor clips in, and then you take the check valve that you had and you replace it on the outside, and you're hooked up. You plug the harnessing in, and you're basically ready to go. So from an installation perspective, it couldn't get much simpler. And then finally, what I want to touch on before we do our demonstration is I want to talk about the interface a little bit and give everyone here a view of what to look for when we actually pull it up and run the system on an iPad. This is the dashboard view. I would imagine, and my expectation is that a majority of our users will spend most of their time looking at this. It takes all 72 or 100 or 140 or however many nozzles you have, and it takes all those parameters and boils it down into 4 graphs that you need to monitor. And there's really 3 things. Again, even that could be overwhelming for somebody, but there's 3 things I want you to pay attention to with this product. Number 1, are your bars green? Number 2, how wide are your bars? And number 3, how close to the middle are your bars? If you're green, if your bars are narrow and they're in the center, you are on target. You are applying well. And that's the whole point of the intuitive interface, is to be able to break it down and simplify it into something as simple as these 3 aspects. Now, for people, at least people like me, who want to see everything, we bring the details view, where you can see all of your individual sections. This can all be configured to however your machine needs to be for operation. And then for those of us that really want to get into a simple click, and you can see each and every nozzle, and the pressure and the flow, the rate, and the droplet size that nozzle is producing, right here in an easy-to-view screen. And then you can always go back to the dashboard. So maybe you're operating, and you're running on your dashboard, and you have a problem. Something comes up, and, well, I got a lot of nozzles on my machine. How am I going to figure this out? Dive into details view and go, and you can identify the exact nozzle. You can go down your boom. Maybe you've got them numbered. Maybe you need to count, and you can find the exact spot where you've got an issue. What do problems actually look like? When you have something, right? I mentioned earlier, you want to be green. I'm not green in this picture. I've got an issue, right? And so we make it really visible for you if you need to. We have audible alarms that you can configure, and you can really play through, and you're going to know when you have a problem. And again, this is a summary. So any individual issue that your system has is going to be represented on this dashboard screen, and you're going to know that you're no longer spraying on target. And then here's a couple of views of the section view with the similar thing. And then here you are with the individual nozzle view. So again, the simplicity of knowing I've got 100 other things to pay attention to while I'm applying, and I know my dashboard screen is going to tell me if something's wrong. And then if I got to dive in and I got to figure out specifically what, so I know how to fix it, you can get into the details. Here we have then finally the targets view, and this is where a lot of the configuration happens. So we actually have a database of over 1,100 different nozzles, each with 6 to 9 settings apiece. If you think about the charts that Joe showed you earlier, we've programmed most major manufacturers and almost all of the nozzles that they have into our system. So you need an AIXR 1108, it's in here for an air induction. You need just a typical broad fan, maybe a TT or an XR, something like that. It's in here. We've got Wilger, we've got T-Jet, we've got all of the major nozzle manufacturers in here. And we do also have, for the oddballs, you can custom program in here. And what we do, and I don't have it shown here, but you can actually pull it up. And just like you would in the catalog, you put your pressure range, you put your flow, you put your droplet size, and you can add your own. So for the interesting ones, the ones that we maybe missed, you've got the option to add them in. Well, I'm going to show it to you now. So have Calby and Ben come up here, and we're going to walk through some scenarios together. There we go. That looks great. All right, go ahead. You want to fire it up? So here we're running some 06s. I'm going to come in. I'm going to make sure I'm on my 06. I've got an operating pressure of 40 psi. I'm going to be running at about 12 gallons per acre. This might be a pretty typical, maybe a glyphosate application, something like that, kind of a standard. And what this screen does is I've got my nozzles already programmed over here so that I can move through them. You set your pressure, you set your range, and this is really key for what's on target. So it depends on how specific you want to be and the needs of your operation as to where you set this. You set your rate, and your range is there, and then based on these settings and the nozzle, it tells you you're going to be applying very coarse droplet sizes. And that's based on what the manufacturers say in their catalogs. So there is no, I mean, this is the standard. You should expect to be driving about 15 miles an hour to get that nozzle at that pressure to produce those droplet sizes and put that rate down. And then your average flow through each individual run. Now here we've got then the dashboard screen. You can see we're running 08s. Now it looks like, I mean, all right, I'm maybe running a little high on my GPA. Maybe my nozzles aren't quite right. You know, I'm looking at them. They look pretty good. I might have to dig into that a little bit more. My overall flow isn't bad. My pressure, maybe I'm a little bit low. And my very coarse droplets. So, you know what? There might be some better that I can do here because this is a little bit wide, but it's not too bad. And we all know it's never as simple as just what is specifically shown on the screen. There are all sorts of things that go into getting that bar narrow. But my flow, pretty good. Pressure, pretty good. And my droplet size, they're narrow, so I'm very consistent. I'm a little high, maybe a little bit low. But that's the power of it, is you can run and see your entire machine. Now here, we just got 4 nozzles running. But imagine if you had 72, 96, or 108, or 144 nozzles. This is what it's going to get you. Go ahead and turn it to an 04. Yeah, just one. Thank you. So here now, using the demo stand, what we're doing is applying different nozzles to show different scenarios. So here we turned on an 04. That's the smaller orifice. You're going to see a drop in flow. My rate is now where it was okay, but maybe a little wide. Now it's flashing red. So what do I want to do? Well, I'm going to go into my monitor view. All right, now, conveniently, I only have one section with 4 nozzles in it, so it's going to be even easier for me to dial into this. But let's go in and look. Okay, well, I got 2 nozzles, one maybe a little high, one a little low. Here's my 0.8, or 8 gallons per acre. I've got 15. Now, what's an interesting point to point out, or an interesting note on this is every time a nozzle changes, your system is always going to try to make it correct, your sprayer. So if you want to apply 15 gallons per acre, your system's going to do that. But what it's going to sacrifice is the pressure or the droplet size or something. So every nozzle that you have applying low, that fluid is going somewhere. I promise you that your pump and your monitor in the screen is telling you 15 gallons or 12 gallons per acre. But each individual nozzles matters. And if you have one running low, you've got one running high. Or you've spread that out across the rest of them. Let's go ahead and turn it all to the 04s. Now we're way off, right? We've got a standard flow pump and a relief valve in the back. Now everything, if I go back to the dashboard, we're sort of fired up all across the board here. We're real low on our flow. We're well outside on our rate, and our pressure has spiked. So I set the machine, but I've got the wrong nozzles, right? I meant to run 06s, but now I've got 04s, right? And that might be something, as you get lower in rate, maybe it's an insecticide or a fungicide or something like that, but I'm lighting up. I'm not green, I'm not in the center, and I'm not narrow. Something's wrong. So go ahead, Calby, why don't you turn the pressure down? First off, I got to dial my machine in, and okay, that helps. My pressure's better. Oh, I've got to come into my settings. I've got to go from my 06 to my 04. And then, well, I'm still running it at 10 miles an hour, or excuse me, I should be running at 10 miles an hour, but I'm still running at 15, because that's what I've got my simulator set at. So I need to bring my rate down. And again, quality monitoring system, right? So I just stepped you through a few different things where my system was lit up red, and I went, oh, pressure's wrong, or oh, I didn't pick the right nozzle. I didn't even set my system up right. Now if we go and look, we're back in. We're green. Again, maybe our rate is a little bit wide. There's always some inherent variation. Our flow looks decent. Pressure is spot on. I want it to operate at 40. I'm at 40. My droplet size is really good as well. So now it's the last demonstration I want to make here. Go ahead and turn it all to the 08s. I mentioned earlier how you operate your machine matters. So what we're going to show here is a scenario where our pump can't actually do what we want to. So I'm going to go into my targets. I'm going to change it to my 08. I've got 40 PSI. I'm going to put my GPA up at 16. Go back to my dashboard. Go ahead, Calby. He's going to close our relief valve as much as we can. We've got all the fluid. And by the way, anybody that wants to see, you can come on up later and I'll show you in detail. Calby's turned up our valve as high as we can. All of the flow is going through the nozzle tips, and we can't actually get there. So a scenario that this might be, perhaps you're running too fast. You're trying to produce too much flow, and the resultant of that is you've got too much pressure and your pump can't keep up. And so it's not just about the flow. It's not just about the pressure. It's about getting all of them right. And as Joe indicated, and as we're going to see in the field, that's going to matter. Each and every nozzle matters. Each and every spray pattern matters. And that's what RECON SpraySense can bring to us. We want to spray on target. We want to show, am I green? Am I in the middle? And are my bars narrow? And if you can say those things, you're spraying on target and you've got a good application. That's all I've got for the demo. Thanks, guys, for being up here. I'm going to hand it back to Joe. Just as a note for everybody, after you all spread out, if you have any questions or you want to chat more, I'll be mingling with the groups. We'll be up here. I'll be up here for the happy hour, so please don't hesitate. I'd love to talk to you. Thanks a lot.
Way to go, guys. It worked. It worked. No, it was great. Okay, so just a couple quick things here for closing. When is this going to be available? We have some issues with supply chain, as we all know, with COVID stuff, so we're trying to figure all that out, but we feel confident we're going to be shipping in 2022. So what we want you to do is go to our website for this product, is sprayontarget.com, and if you click the little Stay Informed button on that page, get in touch with us, fill out that form so we can stay in touch with you and let you know when it'll be available for your sprayer, okay? So 2022, this is going to be broadly available.